The Health Marketing Collective is powered by Imprella, a communications firm built for health brands determined to lead, not follow. We partner with marketing innovators who aren't just chasing attention, they're building movements. Connect with the audiences shaping the future of care and lead the conversations that move your market. Ready to rise above the noise? Visit Imprella.com. That's INPRELA.com. Let's create something that moves the market.
Welcome back to the Health Marketing Collective, where strong leadership meets marketing excellence. I'm your host, Sara Payne, and today I'm here with my good friend and former guest of the show, Jen Hovelsrud. Welcome back, Jen.
Thank you, Sara. I am so thrilled to be asked back.
Yes, I'm thrilled to have you here because we're doing something a little different today. We're changing up the format. Instead of a structured topic or interview style conversation, Jen and I are going to have a little fun today. We're going to talk about some marketing hot takes.
Feels like a trust fall.
Yeah, exactly. It's a trust fall. And really, I mean, the intent here is that we want to get into some of the challenges and the tensions that senior marketing leaders are navigating. Because sometimes, you just got to say that thing out loud and see what surfaces in the debate.
Yep.
And that's
and
really
it real.
Make it real.
Make it real.
Yep, because that's really what this format is about today. But before we get into that, I should give everybody a little bit of context on your background for those of you who haven't met Jen on the show before. Jen has been in health marketing for more than 20 years, including both large enterprises and high growth startups. She is a senior leader in enterprise content marketing, and she's a firm believer in the power of storytelling and strong content to move markets, which is couple of things you and I have in common, among many others, which is why I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Indeed. I
So,
can't wait to hear what you say.
I know. So we have
what I say.
Yeah, true, right? Real off the cuff today. So 8 total takes, 4 each, a little bit of courage sprinkled on top, and we'll see how this goes. My hot take here is that I think most marketing dashboards measure motion and not impact. We're tracking things like impressions and downloads and engagement rates, but we're not asking the real question of what's changed because of it. Did perception shift? Did trust in our brand deepen over time? Did we gain influence where it actually matters? I think a lot of what we're reporting today as marketing teams is noise, and I think a lot of us are guilty of that. I think we've confused or conflated measurement with effectiveness. Jen, what's your take?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I agree, but I have a little bit different take on what I think you're saying about it. So I'll ask you to clarify that after. But there needs to be some tension in the narrative arc, right? So I'll draw attention to where maybe we potentially aren't totally aligned. So I totally agree with you. I think most of our marketing metrics are activity based. Did I engage with your content? Did I click through? What did I do next? I think that's true. But I think if where the next logical point you go to is not you, but the proverbial you is, or what people maybe the argument is that means we're not trying hard enough or our measurement isn't good enough. I think that it's a leading indicator of either success or not. And you have to take that data point. It's one data point in the middle of what should be a lot of data points. So perhaps that engagement with your content led to an increase in perception, which led to, a potential sale and growth in revenue. So that's the real business impact you're looking for. So I think it's unrealistic to think that any one piece of marketing can be measured against that typically. The challenge, of course, is being able to show that attribution, but I do think we're getting closer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, You're absolutely right. Right. Like I'm not anti-metrics, right? Obviously, I'm anti-misaligned
Yeah.
metrics or metrics for the appearance of busyness, right? And showcasing volume for volume's sake. I agree with you that we need leading indicators,
Yeah.
right? We need insights to prove that we're headed in the right direction. Because measuring things like trust is expensive, right? Every brand would love to be measuring that, but it's expensive and it's a longer term view that you need to be looking at. So we do need those leading indicators. But again, are they leading towards something strategic, or are they leading towards more of that activity based reporting?
Yeah, I agree. And I think another good point I heard you bring up there is kind of that reminder that wouldn't it be great if those activity metrics were always even seen in a journey or the full marketing funnel, so that they were planned and executed with a connection in whatever came before and after that, that they were designed to work together. We know that's not always true, and so then those metrics kind of can sit and be for activity's sake only, without sort of knowing if they were effective. Or I would say in really large siloed matrixed organizations, they might not even be designed to work together. And so then you have a real problem.
Great point. Yeah, there's a lot of fragmentation that can happen. And to your earlier point, I think we are making a ton of progress and we are moving in the right direction. I think in the world of AI, where we're actually moving is back towards the value of trust and, you know, meaningful connection, right? Meaningfully influencing somebody's behavior. And those metrics we might be looking at on a performance marketing standpoint are not, like, to your point, like, are we connecting those dots?
You bring up a good point, and I wasn't sure how controversial you were wanting to go here, but one of the things that did occur to me that I didn't say was, sometimes I think we overrate what can be measured. And again, like you said, I'm not suggesting that we don't measure things and we don't hold ourselves accountable to measurement, but it isn't the whole story. Something could still have worked and you didn't measure it. So, I agree. And I also think that AI is going to reveal a whole lot about authenticity and what you can tell that a company repeats over and over and over again authentically. And there are going to be some new metrics that come out of that and reveal or hopefully nudge us in pretty cool new directions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just to tie a bow on this one, and then I'll toss it over to you. I think we just all have to be mindful that it's dashboards themselves don't create momentum, right? It's conviction, it's trust, it's influence. And so having the right balance and perspective around that, it's going to be really important.
Really important. And there are some famously effective campaigns that were totally based on gut and were measured later. And I think it's important to leave room to experiment and innovate and not always be looking for the tried and true, measured, aligned, etc.
Love that. Love
All of
that.
your activities.
All right, your turn for a hot take.
Okay, my hot take, as we unfortunately see our news media underinvested in, taken over by private entities, splintered in terms of fragmented, audiences, etc. There is room for corporations, companies, to think of themselves as publishers and fill some of that gap.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that the landscape is incredibly challenging, right? Like there's no denying that for sure. And I think there's an interesting kind of juxtaposition here because there is a tremendous opportunity for brands as publishers to fill in some of that space and to step up. But I also think what we're seeing a lot of being reported around sort of the future of not SEO, but GEO.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually going to really require that we show up in media channels, right? So that our content is surfacing in those searches. When they're not going to turn to Google anymore to look for things, they're going to turn to a chat bot. And so, not that the branded content and branded journalism isn't going to surface in that, but it does require that your domain or wherever you're publishing that has a level of authority that's going to come along with that. And those media outlets are going to tend to surface that content from media outlets. It's going to tend to surface before branded level content, again, depending on who your organization is. And so I agree with you, but I want to throw in that challenger flag with, and yet we can't give up on that because it's going to be really important.
It's a great point. So if you think you can get rid of your PR team and pursuing earned media, that's not what it means. It'll still be important. What you put out on social will be important to influencing those. If I'm understanding, what I'm reading in terms of what we know about AI generated search at this point. But also, I think it's going to be incumbent upon those of us in corporate marketing to make sure that there is more point of view, instruction, education, consistency, like real valuable content, in less marketing on our websites. If we're going to want to play in that game, and I kind of wonder if mini hot take here, if we don't see a reordering of the dominant players that have been used to sort of buying their visibility, and that game may be changing a bit.
I agree with you. I do think that that's coming. I think that's a very real dynamic that your brands are not going to be able to just rest on buying their way in anymore. And I do. So there will be kind of a restructuring of that and an opportunity and lean in.
Yep.
But also to your point, a really important point, we've got to think hard about that content that we're putting out there. I heard you say less marketing on our websites, right? More commitment to education and the kind of content that people actually need and are truly searching for, right?
Yeah.
In these chatbots. So I think that's a really important point. What do you think is the hardest part of like living that out?
I think the hardest part of living that out, almost regardless of what size your organization is making sure that, well, it's a cultural shift. So even back to our idea that metrics feel safe. If you can prove it out, this is a change. And most organizations that I've been part of, unless you're directly selling something, people get uncomfortable that it's a waste of money. We know that's not true, but this will be a big shift in leadership, in investment, in approach. And I also think there's going to be legacy debt on a lot of our platforms that just aren't built that way. We're going to have to audit, clear old content out, have new templates that sort of feed those AI metrics in the way they are, more Q&A and listicles and long form and everything else that appears to be emerging, and then also being able to keep up with it.
Yeah, great point. And I love the way that you kind of outlined that, really from a larger corporate, enterprise level. I mean, this is the to-do list. And I'd say to folks, like, get going on it now because this is coming, right? Like if you're not thinking about this shift in less marketing content, more educational content, more content with a point of view, you need to be moving in that direction and start, auditing and deciding what are some of those other changes that need to happen.
Yeah. And making investments in your digital properties in a way that you maybe have not before. And I think if you are at a really large organization, I can only assume that the discrepancies in your point of view are going to hurt you being able to influence those answers that come up. And so really aligning what you say, do, produce, the results you get. I think we're all going to be forced to clean a lot of that disconnection up.
Yeah, great point. Consistency will be important. Authenticity will be important, no doubt. All right, let's move on to our next one. Hot take. This one might annoy people, but I think thought leadership as a phrase is overused. It's been watered down, and really we're at a point where it just means content. People are it's kind of like strategy. It's kind of like innovation. It's become that sort of hot it phrase in marketing. Frankly, executives are guilty of doing this. Like we let's do more thought leadership content. Really, they're talking about content. My point of view here is if it doesn't change how someone thinks or how they act, it's not thought leadership. It's just content. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with content, but calling everything thought leadership really lowers the bar so much that the term doesn't really mean anything anymore. So to me, leadership implies a point of view. And I'm just going to say not every blog post has one. What are your thoughts?
No, I think when we got in the digital age, when we got a chance to write our own content, again, the culture was to sell. And we've gotten real creative about how to sell without not directly selling. And we call it thought leadership. And I agree with you. There has to be some new leading point of view for it to really fall into that category. However, I do probably overuse the term myself. People internally, it does garner sometimes in investments, because I think every corporation wants to think about leading in the space, and they see the tie to that and growing their business. So I am waiting for there to be a really good replacement that comes along and has as much sway internally, because I do think it irritates people externally and it sounds arrogant, and it should set a very high bar for what you put out there and call that leadership.
Yeah, but I'm glad you said that, because I think we're all guilty of it. Like thought leadership is the thing. Everybody wants to be a thought leader. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a leading voice in their industry. And so you're right. You throw that out there and everyone's like, yes, let's do it. Right. And it gets funded and right. Everybody's on board with it. So I think we're all guilty of leveraging that to an extent, while also elevating the role of that content, right? To have a distinct point of view as much as we possibly can. So yeah, I don't know what's going to come next, and I'm not mad at it that thought leadership is the cool kid at the marketing table. I think it was long coming, long overdue, but I think it's on all of us to really try to elevate that content as much as possible, but not everything has to have a point of view either.
No, not everything has to. And maybe that cool kid at the table peaked early, and it's just time to leave the lunch table and find like friends his own age too. I get what you're
saying. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's funny. I love that. Great. Thanks for picking up my analogy and just taking it one step further.
I liked it.
Those tater tots are cold. We got to move on.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. What do you got for your next hot take?
So, kind of related, these are stacking nicely. And again, I hope everyone believes like we have no idea.
No, literally, I have no idea.
Literally no idea. But if, if what, pre 3 years ago, pre 4 years ago, it became much more popular for the CEO and leadership of your company to come out with a point of view on societal topics and throw your brand behind support and have that look like you're putting a stake in the ground. We certainly saw a lot of that around the, George Floyd killing, for example.
Yep.
It feels like it's really moved in the other direction where CEOs
Yes, it
are
does.
being quieter, or I think because of what we've seen in terms of some of those same organizations potentially flip-flopping based on the administration that's currently in office, maybe we lost some trust in that, or maybe certain organizations lost trust in that. So here's my hot take. Like we talked about AI metrics. I think companies are going to be held to an even higher degree around what they do and what they're saying at scale, and being held accountable for or scrutinized where those things don't align. And the idea of what your CEO comes out and believes or doesn't believe, or gets behind and doesn't get behind, there may be less desire or tolerance or effectiveness in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great one. I'm so glad you had this one on your list because I didn't think of it at all. And I think it's such an important topic right now. You're absolutely right. And I think back to, let me restate that. So whatever it was 6 years ago, when everybody was jumping on every bandwagon that there was to jump on, to where we are now is let's just call those the two extremes.
Yeah.
Right. And we got to find the middle. And the middle to me is that you are making those decisions based on your core values, right?
Yes.
You're not trying to please everybody, or, not trying to upset anybody. Your convictions can't be blowing in the wind because they're not convictions then, right? Like, so go back to your core values, and as an organizations, decide what are the societal issues, the social issues that we as a brand want to stand for. Because it can't be all of them. It can't be climate change and DEI and, go right on down the list. Pick one, pick two. Maybe you're ambitious and you want to pick three. That's fine. Whatever is the right size for your organization. But then be comfortable with the fact that going all in on that thing is not going to make you friends with everybody, but that's okay because it doesn't matter, because it's what you believe in as an organization. And what you said in your hot take really resonated with me and got me to this thinking around, kind of the two poles of where we've been over the past few years. And now we need to find the middle. I think it's going to lead to a better place. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's a wake up call, because I remember the conversations when George Floyd was killed. And I remember conversations in consulting clients, and everybody was calling and everybody was saying, do we need to put out a statement? Everybody's putting out a statement. What's our statement going to be? And I remember some clients saying, I don't want to do this just to do it, because is this our thing to carry? Not that we're, not right. We're not anti. We're just like, is this our thing? Like, we're a brand in this completely, like, is that our thing that we're going to put a flag in the ground on? And I think that's exactly the right conversation. Is we can't all be jumping in one direction or touching absolutely nothing and not having any stand. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought this one up.
Question around what you just said, like when you were consulting clients around this, as I heard you answer that, it occurs to me that you can't have every CEO setting sort of their own platform. I mean, you certainly can, but a brand moving that quickly is going to be hard to track. It's going to be hard to be known for those things, and it's going to be hard to reinvent your digital footprint across some of those things too. So what would you advise an organization and an incoming CEO who maybe wants to relook at that platform? How would you advise
I mean, I think it's fair to revisit them on occasion. I think it needs to be revisited to make sure that it's still, authentic and true, and there's still a commitment. And what are we doing to demonstrate that we were committed to that? I think that's important. But it all goes back to the core values again. And so how often are you updating your core values? And organizations do, and that's okay. But again, these things aren't blowing in the wind. They're written into the DNA and the fabric of your organization and your core values and your culture. And so I don't think that every new CEO that walks in the door should be picking their personal passion project or organization. I think it's hardwired in to the DNA of the organization. I think about Patagonia, right? Like that's the one brand that in this whole conversation just keeps like right in front of my face. Prime example, right? And that goes back to the founding of them as an organization, and it is woven into the fabric of everything that they do. That's to me what we're talking about here. Like that's what the stakes are, is really figuring it out on that level. And again, it doesn't mean you can't add something new or walk back or slightly modify or say, you know, we've decided, you know, if this the next generation of our company, we're in support of this. Right. But it's not something to be changed every, you know, 12 months or 4 years even.
Agree. And I also think what we're probably saying is, tell me if you disagree, it really shouldn't be about any one leader or about your CEO. You said it's about what your company does and believes, and that should transcend any one person. Again, doesn't mean that it should change or that it can't change, but it shouldn't change because of one person's areas of passion, perhaps.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Love that one. My next hot take is, you're going to probably disagree with me on this one, but long approval cycles are killing brand relevance. If your content needs 6 layers of approval, it's already lost relevance. And again, I'm not saying to remove compliance, especially in healthcare. I understand the industry that we're working in and all the regulatory considerations, but we can't be about eliminating risks at all costs, because what you lose with that is the human element, the speed, the personality, the voice. So that's my take.
Yeah. So here's my take. I mean, I think it certainly doesn't help you to be timely, right? Right, and give your own hot take on a topic. But I think if those approvals are about minimizing risk, and certainly some of them have to be, but then you're using your approvals and those, you know, SME voices internally for the wrong reasons, and that'll be that cultural change that we were talking about. If it gets you to a place where you are more closely aligned to what the company believes and is doing and the results you're getting, then I would say those approvals have a really important point that surpasses being relevant. And I think what will be important for corporations and agencies that advise corporations is to make sure that you really get clear on, you said this, like who you are, what you do, why you do it, how what you do is aligned, and what your point of view is on those things, because that gives the people that are developing that content really nice territory to explore, and they know where they can push the envelope and where they can't, and it shows up in aggregate as being tied together and not a bunch of individual voices.
Yeah, I agree.
That have little to do.
I think we got to find that again, the happy medium, right? Similar theme here. Right? Like, can we move? We're not talking about getting rid of approvals, right? That's not realistic, but we're saying, can we move from, you know, 8 approvals to 5 or 6 to 3, right? And to your point, adding in certain guardrails, and that empowers the team that's working on that content to know upfront whether that's even going to play or not, right? So yeah, I think it's guardrails without the gridlock, and that's the sweet spot that we're looking for there.
Yep, totally agree. And I think you nailed it. Like, our business leaders need to be able to trust their marketing and comms partners that are developing this, and those marketing comms partners need to be sure they're deeply embedded in, you know, the aligned point of view and the business.
Yeah.
So
well said.
It'll take that mutual trust.
Well said.
Next hot take. Again, these, like, there's something weird going on here. I my take, agree or disagree. oftentimes, or at least in most of the organizations I have been in, we think about marketing and communication as needing to reflect the business strategy. I think I think this probably was always the case, but we're going to feel it more acutely that marketing needs to be a leader at the table. Marketing comms needs to be a leader at the table and influencing business strategy as well. And that alignment up and down, that point of view to what we produce and the results we get. There has to be somebody at the table reflecting who we serve, what we say, and just keeping tighter alignment and keeping that front and center way more so than we have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on this one. And this format is we're supposed to be disagreeing with each other. This is going to be a hard one for me to disagree with you on, because you're absolutely right. I mean, we've been talking about several times in this conversation already. It's about trust. What's going to move market? What's going to move a buyer? Trust. And where does trust come from? Comes from the brand and the customer experience and being real and having people understand what you're trying to do and how you can help them, and all of that content, educational content, that leadership content that comes around that. There is a steering opportunity that a marketing comms leader has at the business level to help unlock that, at the business level, right? Like, you want to be like an actual thought leader. If you want to be a leader in your category, that is a comms job. Like, you have to have the innovation, and you have to have the disruptive thing that's going to change the market, but it is a comms job to condition the market for that change. And that's a great example where marketing and comms, the work of marketing and comms, is sitting right there at the business strategy level. So yeah, hard for me to disagree with you on this one. I guess I wonder why it's taken so long. What is so uncomfortable about having marketing and comms at the table at the business level? I wish we knew the answer on that.
Yeah, I wish we knew the answer on that too. And maybe it's incumbent upon, those of us that have had the chance to ensure that the business leaders think of us differently. And certainly there are organizations where they've made headway in that. But as a whole, when you look at the average tenure of a CMO, as a society, I don't think we've appreciated the importance of that business advisor outside of helping us sell things. I might be overstating that. You can call me on it. But
No, I agree. I mean, I think I see a lot of takes on this on LinkedIn as well, that, the when the business isn't performing, fingers point to marketing. Right. And
Yep.
that's not, there is a factor there for sure, and a responsibility and an accountability to our earlier point, right? The metrics have to show that we are contributing at the business level. And yet marketing so easily becomes the scapegoat in that situation, right? Versus looking at the holistic view. And marketing is but one layer of that.
One layer, and we can be an easy scapegoat. I admit that, but I one more push on this topic. I also think if we are in this environment where it really is important to offer a point of view and be publishing with value, and have the results to back it up, I think marketing and comms is going to need to be able to influence some of those business goals for the results we get. For example, if I am saying, this health device gets, I want to be able to say it does A, B, and C. This is maybe too black and white of an example, but I need you to get results if I'm going to be able to do my part. That's nothing new. But I think I might need a seat at the table to an even greater degree in an AI environment.
100% agree. And like, I think all signs are pointing in that direction. And I actually think we're seeing it play out actually in real time right now, where CEOs and boards are making the decision to have marketing have a bigger seat at the table. And so I think very soon we're going to start to see more case studies, so like case study-esque impact of that. Like, why not? Let's lean into it. Right? If what we've been doing to date isn't working, let's try something different.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, hot take number 7. This one's about AI. I believe AI will force brands to be more human. I don't think it's going to replace great marketing. I think it's actually going to expose mediocre marketing. And I think this is some of what you were talking about earlier. Brands as publishers, right? We've got to get more scrupulous about the content that we're putting out there and making sure that it's high quality. So, we all know this. AI scales whatever you feed it, right? So if your strategy is weak, it's going to scale your weakness. And if your point of view is strong, it will scale that too. And so I think that this is about being more strategic and also being more human, more opinionated, more distinct, because generic is going to get really crowded and people will not have a lot of tolerance for that.
No, and again, it's not helpful to anybody if we sit here and agree, but I do agree with you, and I would maybe flush out a couple of those points even more by saying, we all have the same tool. Yes, you can give it different prompts, but from a brand standpoint, more people being able to create more content faster is kind of a nightmare. And so how do you, what does strong marketing look like if what we're saying likely is what a winning strategy in the future in an AI environment? Those companies that can pivot, empower employees to share an aligned but strong point of view, to be human, to differentiate themselves in terms of a whole lot of different things. Like, what do those tools look like? And then how do you set people free to use them in a way that builds your brand and your business and that's the key, an authentic way. So,
Yeah.
If we've all been busy trying to be polished up to this point, polish isn't going to win the day, probably going forward, to your point.
Love that. Yeah, great soundbite. All right, you have the honors here of our last hot take.
Okay. Maybe this is a nice bow on it, or it'll fall flat. Let's see. Brand investment has always been hard to rationalize, especially upper funnel. Building awareness, building trust, building perception, all those things. They're hard to measure, and they're not about selling a product in the moment. Or at least in the places I've been, brand investment upper funnel has been a tough argument. I would say it's going to be as important or more important as we move forward, not because we want to achieve perfection, but because we need to understand who we are, what we believe, and give people the guardrails to operate in. Is brand the answer going forward or not?
So is it brand or brand awareness?
Oh, it's a good question. So let's say brand. Let's say brand and not awareness. Awareness as a goal, but it's been hard to rationalize upper funnel brand investment or upper funnel goals because they're squishier to measure. Like that, way back to our very first hot take.
Yeah.
It can be a really hard thing to measure the output of your investment.
So I'm going to react to this, and it may or may not align with where you're going with this. So this is very real time, but I played around with a hot take of like branding as a function is dead. And that's like super controversial. And I don't mean it like I don't see the power of developing a brand.
Yeah.
But what I mean is that the function of communicating your brand or branded content is that more human version of the content, is that could be educational content, but it is more outside in than inside out, is really what I mean. I think
It's more
for too
absolute.
long we've been navel gazing, and we've been standing
Yeah.
at a podium, and we've been like, that's what I mean by branding instead. Like, we can't stand here and be like, I'm so great, or my brand is so great. No. We're actually communicating it from the customer point of view. What is the problem that we're solving? What is the issue that we're speaking to? And it isn't my brand this or my brand that. And so I think I'm with you on this one. Like, I think that whole concept of what that content functions to do, it's kind of becoming a little bit irrelevant. It's serving more of an internal purpose than I'd argue an external one. I don't know. I don't know if that aligns with where you were going with this, but that was my first initial reaction to it.
No, I love where you took it, because I was thinking of um something slightly different. I love where you took it. Well, I was thinking of that, but you took it to the place where sort of money rubber meets the road, and it's around branding. So do you invest in this brand you can own that is recognizable and that is for sure about selling? And so at what point does that sort of become a lost art? If it does become about authenticity, it does become outside in, and then probably more of your resources, not that that's ever going to go by the wayside, like, something you put out shows up with a different color of font
Right,
every time.
right, right.
That's chaotic. But the idea that you that what your brand does is really provide internal alignment around who the company is,
Yes.
how they show up and sound, what you believe, what you do, maybe some of those deeper um, principles that you need to be able to reflect to your audience than some of the more surface things that we think of as branding.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's this internal function of who we are and what we stand for, and the consistency piece, the colors, the, like, all of that. Yes, totally agree with that. And then there's the acceptance of but actually our brand as we know it, we can control these things, but it's out there living in the world, and it is actually the customer experience with the brand that is the brand. And that is
That is, I see what you're saying now.
right.
You're
So
absolutely
there's this interesting juxtaposition, right, where we have to sort of be okay with letting go of that control, but also managing against how that actual experience is showing up out in the world.
No, I love what you're saying. I think it's putting the pressure in the right place. And again, red string flowing through all of this. I think it puts the pressure in the right place, because too often marketing teams, brand teams PR teams are asked to lift reputation, lift brand. And we know that really in reality, outside in, the brand is absolutely everything you do, decide, every experience someone has with you. And that does and certainly should go far beyond any marketing effort. So maybe marketing needs to start going well beyond a function of helping a company sell. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love that we're leaving it here, because I think it's gonna inspire some introspection for marketing leaders to kind of chew on that on their own too, and think about what feels right for their organization and their lived reality today, and really push on some of these ideas, and figure out, like, yeah, we're headed in some definitely in some serious direction on a number of these fronts. And what's interesting is we, 8 hot takes, right? And as I kind of replay them in my head, what strikes me is a common theme here is this is about leadership
Yes.
and
And
trade-offs.
through change, trade-offs leading through change.
Leading through
Um,
change. Yep, what we're willing to fund and stop funding,
yes,
frankly, that's part of the trade-off piece, right? What we're willing to say out loud, what we're willing to risk at the end of the day to protect that
yes.
trust. in the company and the brand and the relationships that we have in the marketplace. I mean, I think you said it when you said the seat at the table hot take. I think we live in a world where marketing's never been more scrutinized, but also never been more consequential.
Yes. Yeah. Well put. And just, when we talk about leadership, the idea that, I mean, great time for a visionary leader too, to be able to anticipate what's coming, because I wonder how long will it take, for us to sound naive here in
Right.
terms of where this technology really took. I mean, it's going to come quickly, right?
Yeah,
It's
like
not going
how
to be 5
fast will
years
this
from now.
conversation we've had today
How fa-
age, right? Like 3 months from now, people
Yeah.
are like, wow, that was
Yeah. Duh.
duh, thanks guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, navigating this tension is the real job of leadership, and that's part of the reason why this show exists, is to really explore those tensions and really help inspire leaders and share insights around the table. So, Jen, thanks so much for being willing to spar with me a little bit today. I thought that was fun.
Thank you. I had a great time. So thank you for asking me.
Maybe it won't be the last time. Maybe we'll be back
Maybe.
with a fresh set of hot takes, because like you said, these are going to be outdated in like 3 months, so we'll be back with more.
Yeah, but you're gonna need to up your frequency too.
Awesome. Well, to our listeners, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and thank you for being part of the Health Marketing Collective, where strong leadership meets marketing excellence, because the future of healthcare depends on it. We'll see you next time.